There's, you have to partake of the abundance of fruits.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Dennis, how you doing, man?
Hey,
It's been a
man.
week.
Whew.
Happy
I'm
fucking
wore out.
hour.
I didn't even send you pictures of what I did today. I built a 600-pound fence door. Attach at least 12 hinges to be able to hold it up.
Damn.
Damn, man.
Doesn't hinge door.
It all hinges on whether or not the braces are strong enough.
Not all hinges on the hinges, right?
Maybe a bit of a creaky proposition, but all things being even. We'll just see how it hangs. We'll see how it hangs.
That's a lot of...
It's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight, man. It's taking you this long. We've been waiting for this long, but it's a long wait. And, man.
In the Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. I just need...
What a great line that is. Half past dead.
Lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed?
Rhymes.
He just grinned and shook my hand. No was all he said. Well, anyway,
Damn.
take a load off,
Amen.
Betty.
Take a load off me.
Fanny. Goodbye to Miss Fanny. That actually, speaking of our last episode in words, musical lyrics are a good place where the power of words is driven by a need to be pithy and to be emotionally balanced and absolutely proper English, absolutely consistent with language, not weird shit, just descriptive, right?
Not weird shit.
Not weird shit. That tune is a good one. Another one is Up on Cripple Creek, where the songwriter, I don't know who wrote that for
Band.
sure, but
No, they
just describes moments.
right.
The lyrics are just a moment, an image of a girl selling candy in an airport, or
Yeah, I do enjoy songs, and I guess at that point they're also sort of poems that are just
the
little
lyrics are
slideshows.
Did you do your The Doors homework?
No,
The Jim Morrison homework? No,
I've not done any.
That's a
You hung a
study
door.
of a poet in motion and what happens when poetry collides with rock and roll and Satanism. Yeah.
I have read a biography of Jim Morrison, and so I'm very much aware that he considered himself a poet above all else. And he was sitting on the beach in Santa Monica or whatever, writing LA Woman, and that was a poem to him. And and he never considered himself a singer, but then he got pressured by these guys that wanted to make music into using his lyrics in their songs, and he then became what he became.
The night he opened, he went and turned toward the audience. He was so frightful.
And self-conscious and embarrassed, and
and thinking, not at all does this make sense. I'm just going to sing my poetry. And the band was so responsive, and actually wherever he led them, but they became so familiar that they made the path easy to mark. But some of his stuff was just so fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Like, what? Whoa. Dark place, dude.
Yeah, I think he would now be diagnosed with certainly depression, if not bipolar, but
He was narcissistic.
And just the level of just alcohol consumption too.
And as a beginning point, not by any stretches as an end point.
Right.
He was
burning the fucking candle on
both ends
high.
and then around the middle.
Yes. He had the burner on high and just chuck the candle on there.
So to jump into a question that I'm just so eager to ask you, did you catch the next to the final episode?
Oh, fucking yes, I did.
Mare of Easttown.
Oh, yes, I did. Okay.
Oh, my God.
What an episode. This is the best one so far.
They're all the best so far. Every one has been the best so far.
Okay. Much like our podcast episodes.
Right. Which at this point, we're almost fair. Since our starting point was so low down. But I have a prediction to share with you. I won't necessarily...
Oh, I have a prediction to share with you, too.
Oh.
Sir.
Huh.
Okay, so let's jump into this. I did not and do not appreciate when a show... I want a whodunit to have the answer available. So many whodunits are like, they just don't give you enough information, and oftentimes the actors themselves don't know that they are the assassin on episode 1 or whatever. But I like a whodunit where you know where the guilty party has been with you the whole time.
Huh.
And This
How long have you known? I've known that it was Billy for 3 episodes. Ever since he left the room and she noticed that his beer was untouched and he was nervous and he left. I knew at that moment, that was at least 3 episodes ago, that Billy was the perpetrator.
But Billy hasn't been with us for that.
Billy's been with us since the first episode in a very minor role, hanging out with his brother, who's married to the main character, and he is so non-apparent that I'm not surprised that you missed him. But he has, in fact, been in every single episode. That's my. And you can test it. You can watch every episode again. All you have to do is watch the first one, because even the first one, you know that he's in every one, right?
Yeah, I'm willing to grant you that he was there at that dinner party that they had in the first episode or whatever. But he wasn't really present until just recently.
I don't think that's the phrase that you mean to use. What you're saying is that he wasn't in any way a main or a primary character or focus, and that's just changed. He had a trajectory of increased presence, as you were, and in fact, the director and the screenwriter made the point that we're going to create a guy who at first you can't even remember whether he was there or not.
Right.
And then over the second and the third. In fact, he laid low for at least 3 full episodes, and it wasn't until the 4th one when here's the thing, is that she's very insightful, and the camera is her eyes. The camera is her eyes. So when she notices the full beer, and she notices that he's nervous and puts on his coat and leaves, what we know is that she noticed. What I knew was that she didn't know it right then, but he is in fact the one who killed her. And by that time, we knew that for a while, Aaron lived with that family, with him and with others.
Okay.
So anyway, and we'll get to the predictions in a moment, but go on. Well, by the way, I want to signal the return to St. James Wild Amber Ale.
Not as
one of the best. Yes, they should send us some money, because if they send us more money than what Schmidt sends us, then I'll drink this.
At this point, they could just send us a liquid.
Just take a walk on the mild side, and there's a dude down there.
We've discussed this before, and I've searched that label and posted it somewhere. Yes.
I want to do it all again. Your journey begins with a single sip. I love that. That's how I feel.
And probably you're triggering me to go in the same direction I did before, but your journey, and with that cross on there, implies that you're going on St. James Way, which is the Camino de Santiago, the pilgrimage in Spain. People that wear backpacks and are talking about St. James.
Here's something that very well can support that, and I quote.
Is there a scallop?
The path of the righteous beer is beset on all sides by beers that are, frankly, less righteous.
Yes, I'm sure you've read that before. Is there an icon of a scallop?
Like the fish?
Like the shell of a fish?
No, but there is a map and a compass showing north, and it's quite clear that St. James is a location as much as it is anything. But there's a path to, I don't know, Paw, right up the road from us. Paw.
It's as much as a destination, really.
We make it. You drink it. Everybody's happy.
Christopher Walken jumped in here. Welcome, Christopher Walken, to the podcast.
Your journey begins with a single sip.
Okay. Hey.
Where were we? Back to Mare of Eastwood.
Westworld. Yes, I have questions. I don't understand.
Let me help you. Go ahead.
Please.
First, number 1.
I don't understand how, yes, she went in and found the junkie, and for some reason she looked at the bags on the floor and discovered T-shirts about a family reunion.
Yes. And what are you missing exactly?
How were those T-shirts related to the junkie, and why did that? Because that was the spark that started her asking about the reunion, which started to get down to Billy.
It was explained during that part of the episode where you probably either fell asleep or perhaps just was more than what you could comprehend and take in.
Yeah, I was looking at Twitter or something. Yeah,
but
because how are these people all family?
Aaron's father, who shot Dylan, had, what's his name? Was it Lester or brother? Bethy's brother.
Right.
Edward, maybe. Edward, I think. He came around and was hitting him up for money or whatever, and he said, no, if you want some clothes, you can go and get some. And he told the investigators that it felt pretty good to put them to some use, and he really needed it. And so that's one thing. The reason that she noticed it was because when she was in the room with the dead junkie, she glanced up and looked around the room as she would.
Right.
She's every bit as observant as Sherlock Holmes, as just so wonderfully portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. in those series. But she looks around the room, and she, of course, looks every square foot of the room. She sees a jersey that has Aaron's last name on it.
Right.
That's what takes her to the bag. And then when she digs in the bag, she sees the reunion, and she remembers the date as the same date that was on the heart pendant that she found where the journals were supposed to be hidden.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Yes.
And that meant there's a connection between that date, that event,
and whatever heart's emotional events caused the
her
pendant.
first line of questioning was whether Edward, I don't believe that was his name now, but whether the junkie had been around. That was her first line of questioning, and the answer was no. And then, like an exclamation point that might as well have said, when you looked at it sideways, Billy did it. She said, where did she stay? And the answer was, she stayed with Billy and Dwayne, who I think is the cheating husband of
Billy.
What's that?
Billy's brother. He's the cheating husband.
Billy's brother. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm ready for my prediction, but you have other questions. So did you miss all that?
I didn't really follow how that T-shirt spawned her digging into things and how about the reunion.
Here's one of the points about that.
Oh, go ahead.
This is how these crimes are solved, by a coincidence, not by something that somebody forgot or something whatever, but putting a couple of things together. And her observant nature, her astounding observant nature, and then inquisitive nature, of course, led her to, and of course, trained to ask the right questions of the right people. But anyway, I think that was way cool.
Is that a thing you can be really trained for? I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like that
Absolutely.
level of
Let me tell you how you train for it. There's a bunch of people in a room, and the instructor describes something to them about a murder or a kidnapping or some crime. And then everyone is allowed in the room to suggest who should be questioned and what the question should be. And some are better than others.
Right.
And so what you learn
and then
is
everyone submits their question, and then the professor explains which question is better and why.
They say, all right, he'd say, okay, questions, and there's 5 students. And each one says, my first choice is Johnny, and these are the 3 questions, boom, 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 boom. My first choice is Gene, the brother, blah, blah, blah. And they say, and the professor says, so he points to the one that's the best and says, let me tell you why that makes the most sense. But first, explain your logic. Why did you go there? And he's going to explain, he or she's going to explain, boom, 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 blah, 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 A equals B plus D equals X, whatever.
And
everyone there is going to be able to follow that and say, I didn't quite go there. I went in a different direction, but I can see that. And then they go through it again, and then they go through it again. And what you learn is the logic of letting the facts take you where they take you, not letting your presumptions take you. If the fact is X, if there's something about a bank account, then go to the bank. Don't presume that the bank account was in the hands of the wife or whatever. Just one thing at a time. Boom, one thing at a time. Logic. If then this. Decision tree. If then this.
Yeah, baby.
Not only can you train it, but you can map it, and you can train off the map. And you can list under each decision the type of questions that you need. Is there evidence that this is a material person? Is there evidence that these questions are related to a material? And then maybe at the end say, if there was one question you would ask that is not based on material, based on hunch, what would it be? What's the question you ask when the interview, it seems like it's over, but you get up and you walk away and you do what Mare does all the time, which is an age-old practice started by the rumpled raincoat.
Columbo, baby.
Spoke about Columbo, where just before he leaves, Mare does this. Oh, one more thing. What did you blah, 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 blah.
She did a Columbo where she went back into the house after her partner had left and said, I forgot my cell phone, and went in and asked a thing.
Yeah, just one more thing.
Did you notice how brilliantly I crafted that question to get that response from you?
You did something brilliant. Come on.
You didn't even notice that I was doing the thing that we were talking about, where I asked you the perfect question, and then you went on for like 45 minutes about whatever the Columbo.
45 minutes. It just seemed that long.
Back to Mare.
I'm ready for prediction. More questions. Next. Question number 3.
I was very impressed with how as we were watching this penultimate episode, how they were tying up loose ends left and right. It felt like it was almost the last episode. Like they were deciding that, yes, the priest confessed to throwing the bicycle away and that he would be charged with obstructing information in an investigation, blah, blah, blah. Mare got given back her badge and gun, and everything was coming back to normal. But before we get to predictions, what a great job they did with the camera towards the end of the episode to keep the tackle box in frame. It was always, no matter where they were looking, the tackle box where we knew that there was a gun was always kept in frame. That was a note that I wrote down. But so the implication that the writers are trying to give us is that cheater husband is taking his brother Billy out fishing, where he plans to just murder him because he knows that he's...
Do you know why?
To tie up loose ends, and because...
No, come on. Why is... What's his name? Is it Ryan?
No, it's too stupid of a name. I could look this up, but
no, it doesn't matter.
Billy's brother, Joe Trippett. No.
Joe.
Is it...
No, that's the actor's name.
John Ross. John
is his name in the series?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, all right. John and Billy. So why is John going to kill Billy?
John is also not a very healthy individual. This relates to... No, I want your theory about this. I don't really know. Certainly foreshadowed.
So let me ask you this question, because I'll lead you to this, Talk to me about the picture. The picture that her girlfriend had that she took from her diaries.
Yep.
And she gave to the police. And at that moment, that image, which was never shown, became apparent to the chief of police. He yelled at his lieutenant, "Get Mare on the phone, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Do it now." Because what was there would somehow change the trajectory of what she suspected. And of course, the chief knew that telling Mare to pull off the side of the road and wait for backup
was not going to work.
Was about akin to telling her to shimmy up a tree and shit like a fucking raccoon. It just was not going to happen.
Seems like a thing Kate Winslet.
And what do you think that was a picture of? Because I will tell you what's in that picture, and then you will know the conclusion of the story. But I wonder what are you thinking now that I've raised the issue? I
have not thought about that particular...
It's a picture of John and Billy and Aaron. And the reason that John is killing Billy is because he's going to not only confess to killing her, but in so doing is to confess to the freaking threesome that his brother and Billy, menage a trois, that Billy put together, and Billy goes off and kills her. John's, holy fuck, you killed her? Why? Was he compassionate in saying, you got to say the words, you got to tell me, you got to say the words? And he tells him, and he says, "You don't have to worry, we're going to bury this." He tells his wife, "We have to bury this for the family." Billy did it. He's not protecting anyone but himself.
But what does killing Billy solve? What does John killing Billy solve?
What's that?
What does John killing Billy solve?
Billy's the only one who knows that John was involved with the dead girl as well. The only one, the only witness. That means that she's dead and he's dead. And there's no witness. So killing him, and he would make it look like a suicide. And that's what the gun was in the tackle box.
Okay. You want to know my theory?
Yeah, I'll entertain it. As weak as it likely is. Go ahead.
Yesterday, right after Mare of Easttown came out, there was a tweet by a storyteller of some renown by the name of Stephen King, who said, "Mare of Easttown, not convinced that Billy killed Aaron. I have a suspect in mind. I'll tell you next week if I'm right. Great show. Kate Winslet is killing it." And this got me thinking, and my distaste for what appeared to me to be Billy coming out of the woodwork as the guilty person, much in the same way that the kidnapper, it would have been nice if the kidnapper was someone that we knew, but he wasn't. He was just some local doofus. So I think that it was very easy the way they roped us into this Billy killed her scenario.
And Stephen King notwithstanding. Stephen King notwithstanding.
It felt awkward to me that Billy was, I hadn't remembered Billy, and then Billy was there and he was the killer. And to me, from my goldfish memory.
Are you putting aside his confession to his brother and the blood-soaked clothing? Are you putting it aside? Are you agreeing with Stephen King? Stephen King's talking out his ass.
No, and he has a right to do. But I didn't like, before I even saw this Stephen King thing, I didn't like how easy of a twist it felt to have this. Oh yeah, it's that guy's brother that did it. It felt too easy.
But it's so much more than that. And while you're suggesting a kind of a prematurely predictable ending, the fact that you are so far off on predicting the ending means that apparently, at least for you, it's somewhat unpredictable. So when you're saying that you're angry because it's just so apparent and so predictable,
I'm saying it's predictable.
In fact,
I'm saying it's a cheap trick to introduce a character or to pull on some minor character and say, oh yeah, that was the one.
A cheap trick. Well,
okay, so remember how...
What's cheap?
Remember that Hugh Grant...
What's cheap about it?
Remember that Hugh Grant thing that we watched where the writing was just...
What's it called?
The Unbeknownst or whatever it's called. And how they pulled this stuff where it didn't make sense why the character would do this or why they would throw the hammer in the dishwasher or whatever.
Yes. Do you think there was something in the series akin to that? I will ferociously disagree, but okay. Go ahead. What?
I think it was Laurie.
Was Laurie?
I think John was also unfaithful with Aaron, and Laurie found out and killed her. And I think it's going to absolutely fucking kill Mare to arrest her bestest friend for the murder at the end of the finale.
Now, I actually would be thrilled if that were the ending. I would be.
That's my prediction.
And so I hope... is that you or Stephen King?
No, he didn't say... He said, I have a prediction. He didn't say who. But his doubt pushed my problem with the last episode to...
So you know, of course, who DJ's father is.
We've already tested that it's not John.
Yes, it's Billy.
That would be in line with the murder.
We now know it's
however,
Billy.
Aren't DNA tests such that the paternity tests, aren't they sensitive enough to be like, it's not this person, but it's one of his relatives? I feel like I've seen that in a movie somewhere.
I don't think so. I think the DNA is uniquely linked to an individual. And while there may be similarities between DNA of family members, those exhibits of dissimilarity are pronounced enough that they're definitive.
Beautiful sentence, Dennis. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've seen that in a Dr. House episode somewhere. But so my guess is that Billy is a red herring. And so right as we left it, Mare is walking into the woods where these two men are fishing, and there's one tackle box with a gun in it, and presumably Mare has a gun as well. And
she does now.
Right. And she's not going to wait for backup.
We never saw the chief give it to her. We saw the chief return her badge. We never actually saw the chief give her a gun.
Right.
The last time she reached for a gun was in the dilapidated bar where the kidnappees were kept, and she reached for her hip, and there was no gun. And she said, in a remarkable way, she said, "No gun." She realized, no gun, and then she knew that she had to run and fucking hide.
Wow.
That was the height.
That was a scene
of chaos. Now, here's the thing that the director did. The screenplay covered it certainly, but the final camera view of her kind of crookedly walking on rocks and alongside the river and closer till her face filled up the entire screen and it was screaming, "You don't know what you're walking into."
Right.
Here's the thing that's going to be remarkable about it. She's going to die.
Fuck, really?
There's going to be no happy ending with her and what's his name, the writer.
Writer. No, there is no her
Richard.
And the writer are dropping their daughter off at the University of Berkeley. Okay, good luck, daughter. No, that's not going to happen. So
no.
I would like to believe that it's going to be her arresting Laurie and then just being
Baiting.
as miserable as ever. And then at the very last scene, calling the writer and saying, "Hey, I guess I'm ready to talk to you again."
Calling the who?
The writer.
Still didn't get it.
The writer, the Guy Pearce.
Oh, sorry. Richard.
So, yeah.
Richard, yes. So well played. Underplayed.
Yeah, he's doing a great job of that. So anyway, those are my predictions. We will...
I can't wait for the next episode. It's one of the best things I've seen in a long time.
Yes.
I saw the young pope, the young pope and the new pope.
Definitely looking forward to watching the final episode. So I'm pretty sure we're going to cover that next time.
Next time.
Happy hour.
So we have a lovely day. It's been in the 80s here.
Ah,
a little cloudy.
nice.
And I put the final skin up on the wall. I sent you the image. Could you
did?
read the insignia on the image? The wall?
You sent me one image that was the photo.
I sent
And then you sent me another image that was, the first image was like 4.5 megabytes. And the next image was like 5.5 megabytes.
Because
with
it had
really
verbiage.
badly chosen, barely legible text on it.
Listen. Let me.
And I rolled my eyes and hit delete.
Let me get you to rethink this a little bit. It wasn't poorly chosen. It was the best of some really poor choices. I tried every single font, every single color, and the one I sent you was as good as it got. And
So of the colors that were available for text on an image,
yes,
black was not one of them.
I tried black, and it was one of them, and it did not work particularly well for whatever reason.
All right, there's your problem. It wasn't about the color black. It was that you had the opacity turned way down or something.
That's what you think, but you're wrong again. In fact, you've been wrong every single time this entire podcast about everything that you've thought about and everything you've said.
Yes.
So the pattern's there. So I don't.
Why would I not continue to on this path?
I don't. And let's just move on to the next subject because it'll go nowhere.
So this is, just to be clear, this is the follow-up to your Slabgate, where you were not a big hole in your house. And
let me tell you the tragedy that occurred.
Oh Jesus!
And for nobody else but me, it's very personal. And so I had the theory, as you recall, I'm going to put on a thin coat of mud, and then I'm going to put on a coat with some crushed stone in it.
That's what I do every morning.
It matches the kind of bumpy feel of the existing stucco. So I did it as planned, and the first time I started to put the mud on, there were so many stones in it that it was like trying to stick stones to the side of a building with a little bit of concrete. So I had to add...
You need mud with stones, not stones with mud.
Yes.
You stoner.
I know. And then I added 3/4 of a bag. An 80-pound bag is hard to pick up, but 3/4. And that gave me a consistency that was stickier, and I was able finally to press it onto the slightly dampened first coat. And I finally got onto a pretty good formula, and I was able to do I mixed one more set. I was tired to do the entire wall with the 3 concrete bags, 2 3/4 concrete bags that I had. So I didn't have to unload any more from the truck. Then it was flat because I used the trowel to push it on and flatten it. The house isn't flat. The house is lumpy. And as you may recall, but probably don't, given
we all are.
Some of your competencies, is that the plan was to rinse away some of the concrete so that the bumpy stones appeared. And the relative inconsistency of the crushed stone compared to the relative consistency of the pea stone was the bottom line assumption of what I thought would be quite an improvement. I couldn't have been more wrong.
The cleansing left more innate troubles than it cleansed. Like, you wanted to get rid of all of your demons, and yet all you did was get rid of the lacquer that you'd put over your demons, and they became more visible.
Well, that's true.
But let's talk about your wall.
Here's the technical detail. When you're using crushed stone, that means the substance that you're applying to the wall is a mixture of larger stone, medium-sized stone, small stone, and some stone that's big enough not to fit through a screen on a screen window, but not like sand. Because this stone that I used, we literally screened it through a screen from a screen window and screened out all the sand.
Pre-screened.
Got a wheelbarrow full of sand. When that mud with that mixed stone mixture was mixed into the concrete, it did not mix up totally symmetrically, so that it wasn't like for every 2 square inches that are 3 large stone, there's just the same 20 smaller stone and then some tiny stone, so that when you rinse it away, you're rinsing away something that shows you consistency. Not at all. Instead,
it's not a homogeneous...
mixed up as it would, and over on the right, it looked like mostly really fine stone, and then some places in the middle, it was an overabundance of big stone, and then in other places, it was somewhat consistent. So when I sprayed it with the hose to wash away the concrete and show the texture,
oh, geez,
I saw at least a dozen textures. And what I love about it is it looks like it's when it's painted, it's going to look like it's the oldest part of the side of the building.
Because whoever did this did not know what they were doing 400 years ago.
No, because it looks so wore out from wind and rain and whatever, and some deeper pockets where it really, I could imagine, in fact,
there must have been some history
whole
here.
House looking like this, because it is this unique, where the application, right, once painted, would make the house look like it had been 200 years old. And in fact, it's brand new.
You're so far from perfect that it looks old and shitty.
That's right. That's right. What I don't like about it is, and I said this to my wife, I'll give you a hint about what I don't like about it. I told my wife, I said, look, I love what I've done here. It seems to me to be more art than construction. I plan on putting
there ain't no science here.
I plan on putting a small wooden frame around it and painting it different colors, because it is in fact the Dennis mural. It is a mural. It is an emotional connection between
To the spirits
me
of the house.
and this house.
Yes.
And I'm thinking reds, oranges, yellows, just a hint of fluorescent green in the background. And she looked at me and she said, no. And she changed the subject. And that was the end of the story.
Yeah.
So there you have it. So
when you describe that,
jobs where,
I'm imagining spreading chunky peanut butter is
that's right.
where my brain goes.
That's
So-
right. Now,
And
here's the
you
thing.
can't control where all the chunks go.
No.
Like they can't, because
So let's take that a step further. Let's take that a step
randomness is
random.
but we as humans, we have a really tough time guessing what is random, because if we see a thing and our brains are like immediately go to there being a pattern there, we say this is not random. But in fact, true random stuff has these patterns that can be detected.
Right. So you're and let me take this into a little strange direction, in that when you're looking at a pattern this is random. So if this is random over a square foot, then might as well assume that random pattern will repeat itself at some point. But let me reject all of this as just, oh my God, water under the bridge. And let me tell you about when I went to go pick up the crushed stone. The guy behind the counter said, oh, I see what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. He said, and I said, well, I think I may have to sift it because there's obviously some sand in there. And he said, yeah, you could do that. Just any screen will do. And he said, we have some that's cleaned, and it's over here. And there's these little bins that are 6x6 square, little cups of round wooden square, and you reach in and you can feel the gravel that is for sale. And it's cleaned crushed stone. It didn't have any of the fine particles that I saved or any of the medium-sized particles that I saved. It was all the large-sized particles. And this is what I said to him. I said, no, I don't want that, because I want there to be
Variance.
more randomness with the sand and the smaller stone. I want those.
Right.
Thinking wrongly that what I was saying was, I want that inconsistency of size. I'm thinking that it's going to be showing itself in a consistent fashion. He was trying to sell me the final solution. That's why my house looks the way it does, is because pretty much it's not pea stone, which are all about the same size, which doesn't look bad. But when it's clean crushed stone, each of the pea-size stones in crushed stone has a different shape. Some pointed, some oblong, some square, some diamond shaped, unlike pea stone, which uniformly is shaped like, I'll let you guess,
Beans.
specifically.
Legumes. I'm going to go with
Letter of the alphabet,
frijoles.
Elemeno.
Elemeno, dear Watson.
Elemeno, Elemeno, won't you tell me what you say?
So
Elemeno,
just as a
what's
warning,
going-
don't go using the term final solution around very much. That's been taken.
Yeah, okay.
This weekend we had two of my son's friends over and one of my daughter's friends over for a sleepover.
Party. Was there a party of some kind?
There was a movie that was watched.
Sleepover?
It was a sleepover. And initially it was one of my son's friends, and that initiated my daughter to say, that's not fair. My friend needs to come over too. And at that point we were like, okay, basically with our children's close friends, we're all in the same fucking COVID bubble as they are no matter what. So fine, have them over, take off our masks, whatever. Let's breathe in each other's mouths. And then my son's best friend, not the one that was going to come over, but an even closer friend, got word that there was a sleepover, and so he got himself invited as well. And so we took on the task of managing 3 extra children after our own 2. And it's turned out pretty well. With 8-year-olds, we spent the afternoon and we went up for a long walk, and we got them tired such that then we gave them dinner and a movie, and they more or less conked out after we put them.
Perfect.
After we told them to go to
Good
bed. Go to
point.
bed. It worked out well. But what I wanted to highlight was my 8-year-old son had this understanding of politics and human emotion that sort of blew me away. The room that they slept in is the room that's normally he and his sister sleeps in, and they have 2 single beds that are joined, so there's one sort of bigger bed, and that's where they normally sleep. But then there's this other bed aside in the room that usually is just for throwing dirty clothes on. Yeah. And so my son came up with the idea that he said, look, this was days before the event occurred. He said, look, both of my friends are going to want to sleep in the joined bed with me. So it makes sense for me the most fair thing is for me to sleep in the bed apart from them, and they can sleep in the same bed together. And that level of understanding of their desires and how to be fair to both of them while also giving up his own, because I think my daughter would have been, and many other children would have been like, well, I'm going to sleep in my bed, and you guys can fight over who is going to sleep in the other 2 beds.
Right.
But he took the initiative to say, look, these 2 are both, because they're coming over to my house, they're going to want to sleep next to me. So I'm going to decide that, no, I'm sleeping alone on this other bed, and you guys can both sleep on the other bed. And that level of cognition and just social thought blew my wife and myself away of how can you be so aware of what other people are thinking and desiring, and the most fair way, in a way that you are giving up something to appease, to make the most civilized solution. I was very pleased, and I wanted to mention that.
Yes. It's great. He could be a future employee of the UN.
He's always...
And plus, with his multilingual capabilities, that's important.
Yeah, I've always...
He learned more languages than the 2 he knows now.
He is reluctantly going to French class.
French. Well, I don't know why you'd force French on him. What if he starts acting like a Frenchman? You'll never get him clean again.
There is that, but...
So every now and then, your face freezes on the screen. I don't know if you know this. I'm not sure if I'm freezing. But it's interesting that it looks like a photograph of you. And because we're just, no, not like that. Oh, no. Put your shirt back on. God. When did you put those in there? Are those implants? Oh, God.
Yeah.
Tassels. How disgusting.
Jiggle around like this.
Twirl, baby.
What about my freezing?
So I will show you some. You've been complaining about anything I send you because of the size of the files. And
no, I save them and then I delete them.
You complain. What's that? You just delete them?
I save the files and I delete the emails.
Oh, so I went into a place called Hopcat last night, which you've not heard about this place. And they've survived the pandemic. And when you go up inside and you go into the bar, there's 2 bar seats. Then there's 2 tables pushed together against the bar, so nobody can sit there. Then there's 2 chairs and 2 tables, 2 chairs. So they cut the number of bar seats down by 2/3, because every table would ordinarily hold 2 seats of that space. They took out half of their tables, and instead of 50, 60 drafts, they had 6. They still had their full menu. I'm always struck, and this is what I'll send you pictures, of the artwork, because it's this iconic rock figures painted in the most vibrant way with real thick paint on it. When you touch the painting, it's a real depth to it. And
how do you perceive when you see a painting? Do you just go and rub yourself against it, or what?
Parts of me, all depends.
Well,
why don't you?
I mean, I've never
I start
touched
with
a
my
nipple
fingers.
to a Monet, but
I start with my fingers, then move to my hand, and then I may go directly to my cheek, or I may go nose then cheek.
Okay, well, to each their own.
Each to their own.
Until we start having people... until we start getting like armpit hair on our Picassos, and then it's okay.
That's nice. That's nice for some reason. Happy trails to you before we meet again. Happy trails to you.
That's it for episode number 112. You can find the show notes, meager as they may be this time, at happyhour.fm/112. You can help support this wonderful show that you are enjoying week after week at patreon.com/happyhour. We would love to hear from you there. And just be good, folks. And we'll see you next week.